Hey, hey, Dr. Maisha here. Y'all know I love playing with my green screens. And today we are talking more about communication and the unconscious mind. And today we're talking about the meaning of the communication is the response that you get. The meaning of the communication is the response that you get. I know that sounds weird, right? That sounds strange. Well, hang out with me for a few minutes. Let me explain what I mean by that in this video. So by now, I haven't done it in a while, but I'm gonna tell you who I am. I'm Dr. Maisha, mind remapping coach, NLP, hypnosis, master practitioner, teaching you the principles of language and the unconscious mind, teaching you belief change so that you can begin to dismantle those invisible influences that often run your life. Now, of course, I'm also a physician, a business coach as well. I do still do that. And I love mindset. Those people who know me very well, know that I love mindset as a foundation to creating the things that you want in your life. So with that said, last week we talked a lot about behavior. We talked about behavioral flexibility. We talked about the fact that the people or the system with the most behavioral flexibility controls the system, right? The system or the people with the most behavioral flexibility controls the system. We talked about the fact that there are no resistant listeners, only inflexible communicators, right? So we talked about all these principles. And so if you missed those videos, you can go back and watch those videos and get yourself caught up because we're taking it a little bit further today, all right? And we're taking it further by talking about the fact that that the meaning of a communication is the response that you get. Now consider. Now I really want you to get this. When I say consider, I mean try it on, all right? Because we all have our beliefs. We all have our preconceived notions. We all have our values. And when I do these, I ask you to consider and try on certain things, because if you want to really learn and take things to the next level, then you need to be willing to consider something different from what you've always thought. Consider new thoughts, consider new beliefs, right? That's how we shift from where we are to where we want to be, okay? So now, consider that a person's reaction to your communication could actually be a function of your communication and not their listening, right? Now, this is not a all or none, but I want you to consider and try this on. So I want to start by just sort of telling you a story of something that happened to me last week and how this relates to what I'm going to talk to you about today. So I had this huge misunderstanding in communication with a very, very good friend of mine. And I was speaking with her about an agreement that we had between us, a longstanding agreement. And that was not an agreement that was not being met. And so inside of my commitment to empowering her to helping her to even meet that agreement, I made a suggestion. Now, that she took that suggestion or interpreted that suggestion in a particular way. And how she interpreted was me telling her to go and ask a third party to help her to resolve this agreement. Now, a couple of days later, I find out that this third party was very upset with me because I had pulled them into an agreement between me and this sister friend of mine. Now, when we finally got to the bottom of it, what we discovered is that what I said in a way that she heard it that was way different from what I intended it to be. Okay. And it all got worked out. Everybody, everybody's cool. We got it straight, all got cleaned up. But what I learned from that, what I got from that is I had to be responsible for the way in which I communicate such that she heard it in the way that I meant it. Does that make sense? And that's the premise behind the meaning of communication is the response that you get. All right. So when I talk about being responsible, right? And I talk about being responsible not as being to blame, but really being at the source of one's life. And so you might be wondering by now, okay, this is crazy. Does that mean I have to be responsible for everyone's reaction to what I say? And that's not actually what I'm saying. All right. We obviously cannot control other people's reactions, responses, or even interpretations. We can't control that. But what we can do is we can sharpen our communication skills to the point and to look at where our communication lands off base from what we actually intended to mean, right? So that's really being at the source of your communication. So what the learning that I took from that is that I can be responsible for making sure that whatever I communicated got understood in the way I communicated. Now it's interesting because I do this with my son as well. I'll say something, you know how kids are. They're like, yes, yes, uh-huh, uh-huh, yes. Or in the case of my son, yes, mommy. And sometimes I have to ask him, now, what did I just say? Right? Because then I could be responsible for that that he got what I said and not that he heard something else. And there have been times where I have said, now what did I just say? And he will have interpreted it completely different than what I've actually said. Has that happened to you? Type yes in the comments if that's happened to you. Type it's happened to me if it's happened to you, because it is something that happens often that we're maybe not aware of, and that sometimes we want to blame on the other people's listening. We often want to blame, oh, well, it's that person's interpretation or that person's listening or that person. But I'm talking about being responsible, being at the source of our communication. That is where the power lies, right? You can actually be at the source such that things do not get misinterpreted, and that you can learn from where things are misinterpreted so that you can communicate more clearly with that person inside of that person's listening the next time. Now, it's interesting because each person's listening is different. So as you get to, that's why communication back and forth is so important, because as you listen to and you get to know another person's style of communication, style of listening, preference for communication, whether they're visuals, whether they're more auditory, whether they're more kinesthetic learners, right? Because all of this plays into the manner in which a person interprets or the depth to which they hear you. It does play a part. So when we begin to really start to listen more deeply to the people whom we're communicating with, and we become 100% at the source for our communication, it allows us to get better and better and better. So as time goes on, we're more confident and that we're more clear and we have less mishaps like the one that I had with my friend. Makes sense? Go ahead and type "makes sense" in the comments if this makes sense. All right. So I'm not suggesting that we walk on eggshells for people either. All right. Because I know that comes up. Well, am I supposed to walk on eggshells for everybody when I communicate with them? No, I am not suggesting that either. Once again, expecting to control, that's the same thing as expecting to control other people's reactions. There is a difference in what I'm saying. This is a practice in saying what you mean, but saying it in a way that others also experience clearly your intention. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Type "makes sense" if it makes sense in the comments. And of course, look, we're human and there's always going to be mishaps. We cannot expect to communicate perfectly every time, but you have to be willing to just be in communication and practice and then clean up the mishaps when they happen. Look, I've been doing this work in communication and neuro-linguistic programming and hypnotic language and belief change. I've been doing this work for almost a decade now. And I've been in personal development work for well over a decade. And I will tell you that I still get mishaps because when I always come with a beginner's mind, I'm always learning. And that's the space to be, is always being willing to learn. Always be coachable, the ABCs of personal development, right? Always be coachable. Because when you're willing to be coachable and you're willing to be in communication, That's where the learning begins. And it's something that I still work on, especially as an introvert, as someone who's highly internal, highly in my head, and loves being alone and loves quiet, although it may not seem like that as much as I'm on video. Um, I have to work on being outward in my communication just as much as anyone else. The difference between myself and you all is simply that there are specific tools that I have taken upon myself to learn, to master, and now to teach others so that I can continue to elevate and to master and contribute in the way that I most want to contribute. Does that make sense? So, consider this, try this on. The meaning of the response, the meaning of the communication is the response that you get. And you all know I love to give homework. So here it is. For the next few days, because you know I've got another lesson coming on Thursday, right? For the next few days, I want you to observe your conversations and the responses that are coming from those conversations. The first thing is that, are you getting the same responses from one person all the time? Or are you getting similar responses across the board? I'm a big fan of how you do anything is how you do everything. While the response may not be the exact same response, the exact same words, most likely you're getting similar responses from the people you talk to. Now, I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying to observe the responses, observe the reaction, observe whether or not people are actually getting what you're saying the way that you want them to get it. Observe how many people in your life are or are not getting it, right? Are people frequently misinterpreting you, or are you hitting the nail on the head every single time? Do you feel misunderstood by many of the people in your life, or maybe just one person, or maybe just a few people in your life when you speak to these people? And I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear what you find. So I want you to definitely come back, post in the comments here. Let me know how it's going. All right, and also post questions. I want your questions. I want to know where you struggle in this concept. I want to hear the yeah buts. I want to hear the what ifs. I want to hear the all of the how abouts, you know. Tell me what it is that you struggle with this concept, because I know that this is a tricky one. I know that this is one that sometimes people struggle with. However, it is very important that you begin to take on or try on these types of principles and try them out in your life. All right. Now, of course, if you want to go deeper and you want to begin to learn more about the inner workings of the unconscious and conscious communication, I do have a free course that you can get by going to my homepage, drmaisha.com, and register right from that homepage. It's called Remap Your Mind for Success. All right. And I can drop that direct link in the comments as well. Also, if you are not already a member, you may be missing out on some amazing, deeper conversations that are happening in our online community, Mastering Conscious and Unconscious Conversations with Neurolinguistic Programming, or NLP. And it's free to join, so you can come and join us. Again, I'll post that link as well in the comments so that you can join the community if you like. And finally, if you really feel like you need some belief change work, you need some deeper work to help get rid of those past emotional pains and limiting beliefs and self-sabotage mechanisms. If you really want to get rid of those and move into a different space, you can always schedule a free mind remapping call with me, drmaisha.com/meet me, right there in the comments. You can't click it, you have to put it in your URL. So I hope that you'll go and you'll do the homework, you'll come back and you'll post in the comments, you'll post your questions, you'll post your what ifs, your how abouts, your yeah buts, so that we can create a dialogue in this particular principle. And we are going to be taking it a little bit deeper on Thursday as we talk more about conscious communication and being at the source, so that we can be more powerful in that communication, and not only communication with others, listen, communication with ourselves, because everything that we're saying outside, our own ears are hearing. Okay. Our own ears are hearing, which means we're giving unconscious commands to our own unconscious mind. So we got to not only be careful what we say, but we also have to be careful in what we say to ourselves. All right. So that's all I've got for you today. I'd love to hear feedback. Go register for the free mind remapping course from my homepage if you want to go a little bit deeper. If you feel like you might need a little one-on-one help, schedule a free call with me, and I will see you on the next one Thursday. Have a great rest of the day. Namaste.